Hey guys, Explorer here. I figure I'd give you guys a little show of what we found out here metal detecting in the hills of New Mexico, as well as on our treasure hunt for the 16 tons of gold. But I'll make some videos about that later. But first up, we got an old oil can here. A lot of old oil well sites, as well as new ones. So you can always find all kinds of things. This guy we actually found on the reservation at an old abandoned home. Obviously old, you can tell just by the thickness of that glass. However, I am not familiar with the name brand or what it was. I'm sure it was some kind of soda, I would assume. But if anybody could tell me anything about that, I'd be very interested. And then we got some old ale soda. And of course, anything that I can find that still has print on it, I'll keep. A lot of it just gets sun rotted, and there's just nothing left of it of the picture. And speaking of which, talk about incredible preservation. Old Gatorade can. Pretty cool find. As well as old collector's item here. Old Coca-Cola bottle. And from what I understand, it's one of the rarer ones. Just an old bottle from, I want to say the 70s, but I could be wrong, could be earlier. And then this guy, I'm assuming it's old Sprite bottle. Once again, I'm not too sure on this as well. And then, if you've seen a couple other videos, we're always out looking for old mines and checking, see what we can find in there. And as far as some old mines, I found an old pick here, or at least what was left of it. An old tie rod that they used to use for the rail systems inside. Got the mines there. And another one. As well as an old shot bullet. So what's funny is this item that you see here is actually an old miner's pan. I want to say from around the 50s. And if you can't tell, they were using it for target practice. And what's funny enough is we actually found one of the bullets that they were using. And obviously that's still a musket load bullet, so I'm not quite sure of that era, but I mean, a little cool find. And then as far as our treasure hunt, we have multiple sites that we're looking at. If you're familiar with the Churubusco's gold legend, there's 16 tons of gold somewhere out here in New Mexico. And of course, you know, we want to look for that. And we've been actively looking for it for almost about 10 years now, me and Space Miner. If you haven't seen his channel, go check him out. A pretty good, cool guy, a lot of interesting content. But in one of the videos, you'll see that we explored an old 1922 house in New Mexico. And that's actually what we consider a guard shack, considered to the Churubusco legend. Supposedly that's where he was staying while he was trying to move the 16 tons of gold. And this object here is an old porcelain cigarette snubber, at least what's left of it, so it would kind of look like a donut, and then you would have just snubbed your cigarette out in the very center. And then we found some old horseshoes from the same period, the 1920s, as well as some old nails, an old buckle, I'm not sure what from. And then we got some old shell casings, also from the 1920 eras. Once again, some horse rigging. And then this was a pretty cool find. We actually found this at the second location that we've been looking for, the Churubusco's gold, which is an old hogan. So if you're familiar with the story, the hogan was used as a staging ground for when the shipments of gold were being flown in. And once again, it all matches the same time period And everything that we're finding from our locations are starting to match up. Hopefully we're getting close to it. As well as the Hogan, we found some ornate buttons. Now what's really interesting about this Hogan find is me and Space Miner, we have probably found, I would easily say, over 500 different Hogans in our time exploring. And not one you would find a piece of trash. Nothing. Not a nail. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Other than just the stone structure itself. This Hogan came with a relic of treasures all dating from the 1920s to 1930s, which, once again, if you're familiar with the Tribeco legend, is the same time period of which he came here to try to sell the gold off. And then over here at the guard check, while we were there, we were metal detecting. I'm not quite sure what these are, but they are made out of silver. I'm not sure if they were part of a fancy button or what. But, yeah, it was a very interesting find. And as well as an actual button. Also coming from the same date, around the 1920s. And then, not quite sure what it was, so I took it. Looks like just the head of a nail that's been bent over, but... And then we also, at the Hogan, it still had the original lock on the door. I couldn't pass it up. It was just too cool not to take as of a little memento, if you will. A little piece of history. Fortunately, I don't have the key to operate it. And then one of the coolest finds, probably at the guard check, was an old jacket. And then the jacket was pretty beat up, so I didn't take it itself, but I definitely took the tag. And as you can see here, the production date is September 28th, 1918. And then Henry Sunborn and Company in New York, which is really interesting, seeing as how this was found in New Mexico. Now, if you look up this company and you look up the serial number, you'll actually find that this jacket was a production jacket for the United States military, and this was a World War I officer's jacket. Now, what it was doing at the guard check related to Tribeco's gold, if you have done your research, Tribeco tried striking a deal with the United States government to try to sell off the gold. The United States government didn't want to do that. They just wanted to take his gold. Well, he didn't want to tell them where it was, and they looked for it. So I could imagine a army soldier out there looking for the gold and getting really hot out there in the desert, taking off his jacket and just kind of forgetting about it. And yeah, so pretty cool history. Other than that, there's a couple of other trinkets, but nothing really too interesting. But yeah, so I'll give you a little sneak, and if we ever find anything else, definitely let you see it.